We're live. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome, welcome, welcome. I know you guys are waiting for us, and we're excited about this Facebook Live today. My wife and I are excited really because we've been actually planning for this one for a little while now, and I can't wait to get into it. And it's such a heavy subject that we're actually going to break it up into 3 different parts. And so this will be part 1 of a 3-part series called How to Find Your Soulmate. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we're excited for you. And I know a lot of you already believe you found your soulmates. A lot of you out there may be looking for your soulmate. So this information is going to bless you regardless of which side of the fence you are on. If you see us looking back and forth here, we're going on our computer and we'll be taking questions and asking people to, tag and share. In fact, we want to ask you to do that today. Tag people on this, post it to the different groups that you belong to. One of the things that we're looking to do is to get this information out into the marketplace to bless as many marriages as possible because marriage is under attack. I mean, the divorce rate is ridiculous. And so we want to do something about it. I always believe that when something upsets you is because God wants you to be a part of either the solution or to just flat out fix it. And so we're going to dive in today, and my wife's going to take the lead on this one. Yes. But again, please forgive us if you see us looking away. I wanted you to know why. It's because we're taking questions or, bringing people on or tagging someone that just sent something. So with that said, again, how to become soulmates. And Dave, you want to kick us off?
Absolutely. Here, I'll let you do that.
Okay. No problem.
All right, so first of all, we want to introduce ourselves. We are Obi and Belinda Indu from Covenant Marriages Academy, where we strengthen strong marriages and we help all others to discover their soulmates, and it's a really big deal. So tonight we're going to delve into discovering your soulmate or finding your soulmate, and we are going to destroy all of the myths that exist, the worldly myths that exist around soulmates and what your soulmate should look like.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So first what we want to do is I want to start with a story. So we're going to connect the point a little bit later, but I really want this to impact you. So listen very carefully. Now, there was an owner, he actually had a dog. And the neighbor hated the dog because the dog at night would just like howl, and it would just be very disruptive, and the owner of the dog, the neighbor could not stand it. So the owner went out of town, and so the neighbor was like, I am going to plot and scheme against this dog. I gotta get rid of him. He's keeping me up. I almost lost my job. So what he did is he got a big, fat, juicy steak, and he put poison on the steak. And he tossed it across the fence, and what did the dog do? He sniffed around at it a little bit, and then he just consumed the steak. He ate the entire thing. A few moments later, he found himself feeling sick, so he rolled around in the grass, chewed on the grass a little bit for healing, and he threw the steak up, and, the neighbor was unsuccessful in trying to destroy the dog. So the next day, neighbor was still, the owner was still out of town, dog is there, and I tell you, he was like, okay, I'm gonna get him this time. So he actually got another big piece of steak. And this time he put more poison all over the steak, and he tossed it across the fence to the dog. What do you think the dog did?
Ate it.
Right. The dog actually went back and he ate the steak again. And, unfortunately, the neighbor was successful and the dog didn't make it again, unfortunately. However, my point with this story is to demonstrate to you that it's a dog. It's an animal. So he was not able to reason with to say, you know what, this steak is not good for me. I had the steak last night and I got really sick, so therefore I'm going to make an intelligent choice to stay away from the steak now. So basically, in a nutshell, my story is about just identifying our powers. We as human beings were created higher than the animals. We're created with 5 powers. 3 higher and 2 lower. So those powers are reason, conscience, and judgment. And our lower powers are our appetite and our passions. The difference between us and animals only operate from their appetite and their passions. I mean, you know, you can train an animal to stay away from things, but their nature is to just operate from their appetite and their passions. So they're just going to go according to what feels good to them. So, but us as humans, we operate from our reason, conscience, and our judgment. So how many humans do you know would have gone back to the same steak in the same place and gotten sick again? Not likely, which is why we stay away from bad restaurants, right?
That's right.
All right, so that's the point of the story, and we're going to tie that in for you, so pay close attention.
Absolutely, and I think one of the best ways to tie it in is really, here's the deal. A lot of us, we find ourselves, we keep dating the same type of person. If you maybe you haven't married yet, right? You keep dating that same type of person and you keep wondering, man, what is happening? Like, why do I keep attracting this same type of person? Well, consider for a moment is because your point of view might be skewed a bit, right? We're not saying anything is wrong with you. We're not saying that you're screwed up in any way. No, we're saying your point of view may need to be tweaked a bit. In fact, we're going to help you with that right now. See, here's what we've discovered. The world's view of what a soulmate actually is flawed. I'm serious. In fact, we'll prove it to you. Most people think what a soulmate is, well, they like peanut butter, I'm going to like peanut butter. I love peanut butter and jelly, they like peanut butter and jelly. I love going to the movies, they love going to the movies. I enjoy, I don't know, bonbons and popcorn at home when it's raining outside versus going to sleep. I don't know, whatever your thing might be.
I'm a beer drinker, he's a beer drinker. I like smoking bud, he likes smoking bud.
Right, so it's up to you, right? It depends on you and what you like. So we mix up, what would I say? How would I describe this? We mix up things that we may have in common with what a soulmate actually is. So we're not saying you shouldn't have things in common with your mate. You should have things in common. But at the same time, those things you have in common are not what make you soulmates. And that's the distinction we really want you to have here. And in fact, there is actually, let's do this. Let's talk about, because now, of course, now we know what the worldview is of what a soulmate looks like or what a soulmate is supposed to be. But let's go to God's word. Let's figure out, okay, what does God say an actual soul? What is a soul, right? Because we know what a mate is, so let's define soul. Mm-hmm. And honey, you have the Bible verse, right?
Yeah, I do. As a matter of fact, Genesis chapter 2, verse 7 says, "And the Lord God formed out of the dust of the ground man, and he breathed into man the breath of life, and man became a living soul." Now there's two components that we want to focus on now, because most people think that, oh yeah, it's my soulmate, someone that likes everything that I like, so we're soulmates, we're compatible. But what we want to draw out to you, although the term soulmate is not a biblical term, it is definitely a worldly term, but we want to use the Bible to kind of tie it in and let you see that it is something that if you're looking for a spouse and you're looking for that quote unquote soulmate, that you can't just look for someone that you're attracted to physically, because real soulmate attraction is from character and value.
That's right.
Those are the two major components that make you really good matches for a soulmate, for finding your soulmate. So we have two components outside of character and value. Well, actually within character and value that makes up a soulmate. And that one component is it's the body. Mm-hmm. And the other one is the breath of life, which is the spirit. We all know it's the spirit. Yep. So most people, like we mentioned before, are just looking for someone that has their same interests, that like the same things they do. But what we want to pull out today is that your soulmate is actually going to be somebody who you connect spiritually with, which simply means that person is not going to be like you. That if you smoke, your mate for life should not smoke, because that person should be bringing you closer to your original way of being created. Right. Should be drawing you closer to your creator. So if you have a temper, your soulmate should not have a temper.
That's right. That's right.
So it's not just about your physical attraction or what you guys physically or obviously have in common, but we want to draw out for you the things that you do not, that most people don't pay attention to. Mm-hmm. There are actually blind spots for them.
Absolutely. And in fact, so let's talk about that. Yes. Right? And let's talk about a soulmate actually is. So we now understand that the world's view is flawed, right? The things that attract us to each other that we have in common, they're good, they have their place, but that doesn't make you my soulmate.
Right.
In fact, if you think of for a second, in God's world, a man is a certain way. A woman is almost the opposite, right? Think of it. I mean, let's just use superficial stuff. Men tend to have short hair. Women tend to have longer hair. Women wear skirts. I mean, of course, they wear pants too, but men wear pants most of the time, right? Unless you're, what is it, Scottish? I think they wear, what is it, a kilt?
Yes.
It's called. But anyway, here's the deal. Here's my point in saying that. There are these opposites in us, right? I mean, we're adults here. Men have a penis, women have a vagina. Ours comes out, hers goes in. So there are these opposites that keep showing up, right? And so in God's world, it's like the square hole meets the square peg. So those things bring each other together. It's not square peg and square peg. It's not square hole and square hole. So it's man and woman, right? Think about that. And so as you start to see these opposites, those are the things that start to validate on a real level what that this person is actually somebody that's compatible to you. Let me go a little bit deeper and it'll make sense. In fact, I'll use our story.
Yes.
Most of you may know, or maybe you don't know, or maybe you've wondered because of the name, because it's different. My name is Obinna Ndu. I'm Nigerian, born and raised, right? I'm not American per se, even though I grew up most of my life in America, but I'm an African man. And it's funny, I use this joke all the time. I tell people, if you saw two African men having a conversation, she's laughing because she knows what I'm about to say. If you saw two African men having a conversation, you would swear a fight's about to break out because we're just very aggressive, passionate people. I'm not kidding. I mean, my African warriors out there, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So here's the thing. So that's me, right? And then on top of it, you know, I grew up in a household. My dad left when I was young. So my mom, I was 11 years old working a job, and my mom had to raise 3 boys by herself. So I grew up not only being an African man, but also becoming a leader, right? We call him Alpha. Alpha is the leader. So I was an Alpha and African. So I had this posture about me that was very strong. And so here I am. I married my wife, who happens to be, as I call her, the Southern Cookie. Right? And the way I always describe it is, here I am, this Nigerian warrior. And so I went and married the Southern Cookie, the Southern Belle. And so, you know, my wife is gentle. When she speaks, she's very soft-spoken. You know, my wife almost sings her words. You know, I mean, every time she talks, it's almost like I want to hear music playing in the background. I think that's how she got me too, y'all. That's what made me go say, will you marry me? But anyway, so here's my point. And so here I am, this type of individual I just described, right? And my wife being pretty much the polar opposite. Yeah. So according to the world's view of what a soulmate looks like, her and I shouldn't work.
Right.
Our marriage should not be functional.
Right.
It should be disarray. Now,
people have actually told us, because of the time of year that we were born. I was born in January, and my husband was born in July. So they're like, oh no, you guys can barely be friends, you know. And then on top of that, my husband's a type A personality. Right. I too am a type A personality. Right. We're both entrepreneurs. Right. So it's like, okay, we're bosses in our industry. Right. And so we can't come home being bosses to each other, or I can't come, you know, but
and same for me. No,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So here's the thing though. I mean, of course, like any marriage, we had our challenges in the beginning, of course. All right. So we're not here trying to say that it's been rosy from day one, but understand the point here. Right. This is the point though. The point is we were soulmates because of who we had to become because of each other. Mm-hmm. In other words, so here's the Nigerian warrior, right? The 30 seconds talking to another man, you swear a fight's about to break out. No, that was me. But here's the point. So here's my wife with her gentleness. So now I learned how to be gentle. I learned how to, you know, not be so aggressive with her. I learned how to use my aggression to protect her rather than use it on her. But it was because of who she was and how she was being, which was a complete opposite of me, that I started to not only appreciate the other side, but learn how to become that person.
Right.
And so guess what? So I learned how to bring it down. But then guess what my wife learned? Because before our marriage, my wife was always the quiet one, right? She would keep her feelings to herself. Don't get me wrong. If you stepped on her, she'll let you know. But my point is, she wasn't as aggressive like I was. She was my opposite. So I learned to bring it down, and my wife learned to bring it up. And there, of course, we can go on and on with other examples of how we were different. But here's my point. Those differences and working through them is what then made us soulmates.
Right.
It was because our spirits got our flesh in alignment with each other. And that's why that Bible verse that she just read is so powerful, because what you got to understand what God says a soul is, right? And so ladies and gentlemen, this is really key that you get this. So some of you may be in your marriage, you've been fighting like cats and dogs. You guys have been going at it, and you start to wonder, did I even marry the right person? You know, Lord, did you make a mistake? Did I make a mistake? And so we have these things, but it's because we don't understand that we're supposed to complement and learn from each other. You see, I learned to bring it down. She learned to bring it up. And in any time we have any conflict, we always come back to that space. Okay, well, baby, there must be something I'm missing. What? All right, please tell me again what's going on. And in other words, we now listen to each other differently. We show up to each other differently. Look, when you first meet somebody, you're attracted to them because of the things that you don't know.
Right.
I don't think they heard me, baby. See, you think you're attracted to them because of just their physical appearance. Of course. Of course you're physically attracted first before you then open your mouth. Let's be real. You got to like what you see before you go try to be with that person. So here's the deal. But that's just superficial. But here's the thing. Once you step below the surface, you don't know that person. You don't know what kind of attitude she has. You don't know what kind of attitudes he has. Right. You don't know their temperament. You don't know. And so you're attracted to people based on what you don't know about them. And then as you start to make these discoveries on the things that you did not know, then you start to wonder, did I make the right decision?
Yes.
As opposed to realizing that those things that are different that you didn't know that show up later that are different from how you are. Their way of being is different from your way of being. You thought the whole time it was square hole and square hole. And then all of a sudden you realize, man, I'm a square hole. She's a square peg. Man, did I make a mistake? No, we're saying the square hole and the square peg, this is what happens. They fit. You get it? And so, ladies and gentlemen, when you talk about soulmates, it's something that you become. It's not something that you attract to necessarily. It's something you become, and the process of your marriage, the process in your union, the process of how you deal with challenges that show up, that's what then starts to make you actually complementary to each other, and you become one. So anyway, you guys, so just I wanted to really hammer that and share that with you all. Baby, you have any comments on that before we move on?
You did an amazing job.
Oh, thank you.
Just to keep in mind that, because a lot of times when we get married, well, not a lot of times, all of the time, when we're married, and we're in a dating world, we have to keep in mind that we are going to attract to the level of our emotional health. So wherever you are emotionally, whether you're exposing that emotional baggage to your spouse or not, that's what you're going to attract. So don't be surprised when later on things are exposed that you didn't know actually existed. It's because you have now the opportunity to be closer with that person, and you have the opportunity now to go through things and actually grow through those things that you actually experience. So we definitely want to encourage you that if you are already in a marriage and you feel like, this person is nothing like me, we want you to view that as your opportunity. We want you to see that as a reason why you can work. Like, say, for instance, you're an aggressive business person and your spouse is not. Maybe you feel like your spouse is unmotivated. Then guess what, guys? Then that's your opportunity to compliment them in that way. Because you have to look at it like God sees you at one once you have said I do. Right. The government sees you as one once you've said I do. That's you don't believe me? Try to get a divorce, and they will make you split everything that came through that marriage in half. Is a fact. So the challenge is that we, as individuals, we tend to want to still operate from a level of integrity that doesn't match up with who we have become as a married couple. Right. So we want to still operate as a single person who's like, oh, well, this is my business. Oh, well, this is my money. And no, that doesn't work. It's a part, if you're going to become a soulmate with your spouse, you want to look for those opportunities to complete that person, because in the process of you helping to complete your marriage. Where your spouse is good, you may not be that great at. Where I'm great, he may suck.
Right, that's true.
So, I mean, it just is what it is. So we want you guys to see that as an opportunity for growth rather than an opportunity to say that here's another reason why I don't need to be here. You know, and in addition to that, I thought they loved skiing, and now I find out that they hate the snow. You know, here's another reason why. You understand? So begin to look at those challenges that surface in your relationships as an opportunity to bring you back together.
That's very good. It's very true. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we really want to share this information with you. In fact, we're going to go into into more specifics on how you can become soulmates. And that's one of the reasons why we broke it up into 3 parts, because there are 3 distinct things that you have to do. And you will if you do this, no matter what shows up, no matter what dilemma, obstacle, you will find yourselves becoming one. You will find yourself square hole, square peg. You will find yourself fitting as opposed to conflicting. And so the first one is empathy. And my wife and I, we didn't even want to give you our definition of empathy. We wanted to actually give you not the Bible, but the actual dictionary definition of empathy is. And so, baby, I know you have that
written down. So empathy here is entering into another's feelings and into their emotions. So basically what you're doing, if you become empathetic with your spouse, it means you're getting outside of yourself and you're now getting into their world, and you're empathizing with them from a space of compassion and from a space that's going to drive you to want to do something about it, to move, right? So say, for instance, you have your spouse had a bad day. And you've been cooking, maybe you're a stay-at-home mom, or maybe you're a stay-at-home dad, or whatever the case. Your spouse had a bad day at work, and they come in, they're silent, they just put their things down, and you just cleaned up. You thought they would notice, and you find out that they didn't. And once they get home, and instead of you going to a place of anger, then you consider for a moment, like, you go to your spouse and you say, well, baby, how's your day? What can I do to bring you back to your center? What can I do to assist you in this process of overcoming what is? Let's talk it out. Let's process these feelings, because you're out there, your spouse is dealing with whatever it is they're dealing with. So when they come home, they need to be able to come home to someone that's empathizing with them, because the world is not. Their coworkers are really not. Well, maybe some of them are. So if you don't, there's a replacement, unfortunately, that happens. But definitely just empathizing and realizing that I am going to choose to get outside of myself and into my spouse's world.
Yep, absolutely. And in fact, we're going to take questions here in a few minutes. So go ahead and type them in the message portion here of Facebook Live. I see all you guys out there now. But just to even emphasize the point that my wife is referring to right now even more. So remember, empathy is one of them. So there are 3 components. We're going to give you the other 2. The second one will be next week, and then, of course, the week after that, I'll give you the third one. But the first one is empathy. And if you look at that definition, it's you being able to surrender your feelings, right? Dying to self, and literally becoming and going into that other person's feelings, becoming that other person. Get out of your head, get out of your stories, get out of your world, and get into the other person's world. Because when you start to do that, could you imagine your spouse comes home, and here's what I see now. Spouse comes home, the other spouse, because they're married, they know each other, you can feel it. You know something is up because their energy is off. And the spouse comes in and you're like, oh boy. The spouse who's home is like, oh boy. Why you always got to come home with an attitude? Why can't he just be happy? Why You see, there's no empathy there. There is 0 empathy there. And see, that's when you clash. That's when square hole and square peg don't fit. It's not working out. But when you say to yourself, you know what? Okay, I know my baby likes to be happy. Okay, I get it. There are times I come home too and I'm not feeling too. Let me find it. Baby, are you okay? What's going on? Because you seem off a little bit, honey. You all right? You need a hug? Talk to me. Something happened at work? You see, even if they say, oh, it's nothing, no big deal. Yeah, no. Peel the next layer of that onion. You say, baby, if it was no big deal, tell that to your face because you're not smart. And you see, you want to get them you want to get in their world. That's empathy. It's surrendering your thoughts, your feelings, your observations that are purely your own, and there's nothing wrong with it. Okay, God has made us all free moral agents, so you're entitled to your opinion. We're just saying if you want to have your relationship work, if you would like your mate to become your soulmate, what you need to have is more empathy. Yes. And so what does that same scenario look like when you do have empathy? Spouse comes to the door. Babe, you all right? You okay? What's the matter? It seems like something's up. Your energy just doesn't quite feel right. Come here and talk to me. Because I know this isn't you. What's up, baby? I mean, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know anybody who wouldn't respond well to that. Right? I mean, if you say that to somebody, they're not going to say, leave me alone. It's all your fault. What the? That's not what they're going to do.
They might.
Yeah, if it's your fault.
Right. But if the point is that if you sow, we reap what we sow.
That's right.
Right.
That's
so
right.
if we reap a soul, we will sow a soul.
Exactly.
So give of yourself. Don't allow for your reaction to your spouse, both spouses, to be from a place of feelings, because our feelings are there to guide us, but they're not to drive us.
Right.
So your feelings are just it's just an indication that that you need to look at something. But we should never react or live our lives according to what our feelings are, because our feelings will always lead us astray. So connecting that with the story as intelligently created human beings. If you missed the story, please go back to the beginning of the live once it's over, and go back to the beginning of the live and view the story. Again, we were created with 5 powers as human beings, and it's reason, conscience, judgment, and those are our 3 higher. Our 2 lower is our appetite and our passions. What makes us higher than the animals is that we operate from the first 3. The animals only operate from the bottom 2, which is the appetite and the passion. So unless you are an animal, you should not allow your feelings to run your relationship. You understand? So the component that the worldly view of soulmates misses out on is the component of the spirit being just as important in finding a mate as well as your physical attraction to that person. Right. You've got to be, your characters and your values have got to be important in your selection of your mate. And once you've made that decision, maybe you've made a decision with the spouse and you're married, and your characters and your values are not the same. Well, here's your opportunity. Absolutely. It doesn't matter where you are in your life. It doesn't matter where you are in your marriage, or even if you're courting to marry. Doesn't matter where you are. This is an opportunity that your soulmate can absolutely, your spouse, the person you're dating can absolutely become your soulmate today. When the first year that my husband and I got married, I thought I married the wrong person. I was absolutely in love with him for years before we got married. I got to know a different part of him, and everything was not perfect. We just got to know each other, and I actually thought that it was a mistake. But what the friction that I was feeling was a growth process that I had the opportunity to take advantage of. So it was the growth in me that was taking place that I rejected because I wanted to stay single.
That's right.
I was in my marriage. I loved my husband. I wanted to be there, but I still wanted to live with my single person's mentality. And that doesn't work in a union in which you become soulmates. Your soulmates are created in the trenches of life. Right. They're created in the trials of life. They're created when things are at their worst, but you come together and you bring them up and you learn from that process and you grow through that process so you never have to repeat it again.
That's true. That's very true. Very strong stuff, babe. And ladies and gentlemen, I know we're running short of time here. We're going to take a couple of questions. I see one person has a question here, but let me just say this one last thing before we go to that question. Ladies and gentlemen, if you remember that analogy we just talked about, where the spouse walked through the door and the other spouse who was home saw them, and you can either choose to have empathy or not, right? When you choose to have empathy, what happens in that moment is that your souls connect.
Right.
So if you think about this, that soul connecting is just at one time. Your soul's just connected in that moment in time. And then next time something else happens, your souls connect again. And then next time something else happens, your souls connect again. Now you got 6 months. Now you got 1 year. Now you got 6 years of souls connecting. Guess what you've become? Soulmates.
Yes.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, that's why it's so key to really get this. So the things that are happening to you, they're supposed to fuse you, not confuse you. Did you catch that? So that spouse walking through the door, that moment, you can either allow it to confuse you or you can allow it to fuse you. Your choice. And we're saying the fusing is what causes you to become soulmates. And so anyway, let's go to the questions real quick here. We've got Sharonda. Sharonda asked a question on here. Her question was...
What's the best way to deal with conflict in a marriage?
Good job, baby. She's got better eyes than me. Y'all see I had to lean all the way in?
See, I complete him.
My soulmate, y'all. Trying to tell you.
Both of us don't need to have great eyes. I'm just teasing.
Oh, no. When it comes to looking at it, though, y'all, I got some good eyes. That's why we got something in the oven cooking right now. Aww. I saw that very clearly. Okay. So anyway, no, Sharonda, to answer your question, my dear, I think one of the best ways to resolve a conflict, I mean, every conflict is different, so there's no cookie cutter solution to every problem. Right. But the first thing that I would say that I think is applicable to every single problem is listening. Yeah. I think we need to start with listening. Too often when they have a married couple or any relationship really, that there is tension, there is frustration, there is conflict. What tends to happen is the listening goes down. Because everybody's so focused on just making their point. Even when the other person is talking. My brother Carlos V. Spencer. Y'all should check out his page too, y'all. Carlos V. Spencer, here's what he said. He said it's kind of like jump rope. You waiting. All right. The person is talking. They're expressing to you what their issue is with you. And you're not even, you're doing everything but listening. It's just like jump rope. You're just waiting for them to finish so you can jump in. You didn't even hear what they said. And then guess what? While they're talking, you do the same thing. And so, look, if there is listening, if you truly listen, this is why empathy is so key, because it forces you to get out of your own feelings, get out of your own stuff and get into theirs. Yes. And so, anyway, my wife told me stop shaking the table, y'all. That's that Nigerian warrior in me. But
just to add to that too, just keep in mind when there is a conflict present in the relationship, that it's only because there's a misunderstanding. And with that misunderstanding should kind of let you know that, listen, I understand everything about what I want to say here. So again, empathy. Let me get outside of myself, totally put myself in that person's position and understand them, and also ask questions. There's a part of communication that so many of us miss, is we don't ask questions, which then tells our spouse that we actually don't really care. Yep. Yep. You know, and then the worst thing you can do is when resolving a conflict is being defensive. Right. Defensiveness in a conflict basically says that I don't validate your right to be different from me. That's right. Or I don't validate what you're saying. No, you're not important right now. Right. And if you change that conflict around and or that communication to your spouse in that moment around and say, baby, I understand what you're saying, and I will work on that. Mm-hmm. If you stop being defensive, mm-hmm. and understand it from their perspective, they're probably right. Mm-hmm. It could be, you never know, but just give it a shot. Yeah. And then sometimes, I mean, there's like this tug of war in relationships, totally. To where people just want to be right. Remember, guys, every story has to have a villain. Yep. Every story has to be a superhero. Every story has to have a superhero. Every story has to have a villain. Just make sure that your spouse is not the villain in your story. Right. Right. It's very important, because that's what we do. We tend to make our spouse the villain in our story, in our movie. Right. You know, he's the problem. It's always about him. Right. And then we go, or it's always about her. And then, we talk about them, we tear them down, not understanding how that's actually destroying our relationship even further, rather than validating their concerns and letting them know that what you are feeling is important to me. That's right. And I want to take the time to make changes. And what does that change? What does that look like to you? Right. That's it.
Right.
Think about it, guys. You are married. You are you. Your spouse is you. We're the same person. I mean, we're different, but you know what I'm saying?
Right.
We're the same under God. So it makes sense that no one else is going to give your spouse the emotional support that they need.
Yeah.
No one else is going to validate their concerns like their spouse. No one else is like in the position to provide them with those things that they need more than you.
That's right.
So take the opportunity to absolutely do that.
Absolutely. And ladies and gentlemen, one last thing we close out here because we're over by a couple of minutes, but this is good stuff and we just didn't want to cut it off. But listen, one last comment before we wrap up. When you start to do what my wife just described, it's going to feel uncomfortable.
Yes.
Let me be real with you. As you start to allow the other person to say the things that are troubling them, right? Because you should be able to allow your spouse to complain to you about you. If you're not able to do that, you're being very selfish. And whether you believe it or not, you are the problem. And so I'm just going to be real with you. As you start to do this thing that she just suggested, you're going to feel weird. You're going to feel like, okay, I'm not going to say anything. Let me just listen to you. Right. But then guess what? You do it again, it becomes easier. You do it again, it becomes easier. You do it again, and before you know it, 5, 10, 15 times later, it's so easy to do now. Well, baby, let me hear what you got to say. And you're right there. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I was misinterpreting you the whole time. Conversation over. Now, arguments that lasted a week, your conversation is now 2 minutes. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, this is what starts to happen. So when we talk about soulmates, that's what happens. So a soulmate is not somebody you just meet. A soulmate is somebody, two people who become. And so really take that to heart, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, a marriage is where two broken people come to get healed.
Yes.
And how does the healing occur? You got to be authentic with each other.
Right.
You've got to listen to each other. And as we said today, in How to Become a Soulmate, you've got to learn how to have empathy.
Yes, and 5 minutes of empathy can resurrect a dead relationship.
Yes.
So take time out each day, 5 minutes a day of empathy can bring your marriage from divorce to now your honeymoon phase. Okay?
All right.
So I'm excited. Yeah. Next week we're going to talk about the other two components of becoming
the other one. Don't give them everything, baby.
No, what I'm saying over the next 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell them everything. Okay.
No
So
we just did it. Y'all saw that? You see what just happened? You see? You saw that? Anyway, y'all get it. If you were listening, you understood what I just said. I'm sorry.
Okay, so next week we're going to talk about generosity in relationships, generosity in a marriage, and how important that is to becoming a soulmate with your spouse or finding your soulmate, generosity. And then the following week after that, we're going to talk about priority. Priority. So that's so key, and oh my goodness, next week is going to be, I'm excited.
Absolutely.
Because it's not what you think.
Yep. And so, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sticking with us. Even though we went over our time a little bit here, we appreciate you. Prayerfully, you guys are putting this stuff into use and practice in your marriage. It's one thing to know something. It's another to actually do and live from that space. So we teach so you can live, not just know. So practice this between now and next week. Practice these things. Even if your mate wasn't on here, don't worry about it. Just do it. Just do it. Watch them say, baby, you felt different. And they're going to start to appreciate you more. So, hey.
5 minutes of empathy.
Yep. So, we are
Obi, he's Obi, and I'm Belinda Indu with Covenant Marriages Academy, where we strengthen strong marriages and we help all others to discover their soulmates, whether it's in their spouse or in their husband or wife to come.
Right. That's right.
All right, so take care, take charge, share this video, like it, like our page if you haven't done that so you can get our notifications and stay updated. Also, this information that we're sharing with you is going to be released in our 5-module video series, and we're so excited for everything that's coming. We just finished our new book. It's a giveaway, and we can't wait to share it with you guys. It'll be available actually on Amazon next week. So I forgot to show
that's
them
fine.
the cover.
We'll bring it next week.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So,
all right, so take care, take charge, and God bless you.
All right, you guys. See y'all next week. Make sure 6:30, Covenant Marriage Academy. God bless.